Let's talk about 300-year-old waffles. Did they have waffles in the 18th century? It's a question that kind of comes up. A lot of people ask about a very, very common food for today and how that reaches back into history. Waffles have an amazing history. They go back a long way, probably to the Middle Ages and even before that. But when we want to connect them up with 18th century England or 18th century North America, we have to look at the Dutch connection. So first of all, what is a waffle? We know waffles are like pancakes, sort of, at least North American pancakes. The other thing about a waffle isn't a waffle unless it's got a waffle pattern, right? Those square grids. If it doesn't have that, then it's not a waffle. Well, we can find exactly that kind of waffle in paintings, Dutch paintings from the 16th and 17th century. The golden age of painting is just amazing. We go back and look at these paintings and there they are, waffles sitting on plates. It looks like something that you would get today. Waffles do somehow go from that Dutch connection into Great Britain and North America. And we have these great connections. There's a lot of connections between the Dutch and the English in the 18th century and the 17th century, and especially North America. We have a Dutch colony. New York is a Dutch colony from the 17th century. More than likely, yeah, they had waffles in New York in the 17th century, 100 years before the Revolution. We definitely find references for waffles showing up in cookbooks. The first time we see waffles, especially spelled like we expect waffles to be spelled, an English cookery book from 1725. Now, we could find a lot of different waffle recipes. They'd probably be almost exactly like, waffles we have today. I want to go back and do the 300-year-old waffles. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do that recipe from 1725, and we're just gonna see how these waffles turn out. So our recipe today is from Court Cookery, or The Complete English Cook by Robert Smith, 1725. And let me read to you this very simple recipe. Not like recipes today, right? So it says, waffles. Take flour, cream, sack, that's kind of wine, cooking wine, nutmeg, sugar, eggs, yeast, of what quantity you will. Not many recipes like that today. Mix these into a batter, let them stand to rise, then add a little melted butter and bake one to try. If they burn, add more butter. Melt butter with sack, refined sugar, or orange flower water for the sauce. So how are we going to interpret this kind of recipe? We can't jump into this recipe like we would any recipe in a modern recipe book. What I would do on this is, we know the ingredients, and many times these are, they don't actually call them, recipe books. These are receipts. So really it's just, some of these are just, here are the ingredients you'll need, not the amounts at all. We know we need a batter. We know that it needs to be very liquid. We have flour, cream, sack, eggs. We've got a lot of liquids here, and we just need a certain quantity of flour to bring that up to a batter mixture. And a lot of times I'll look at a more modern recipe, something from the 19th century, to get an idea about the amounts on this. Let's go over to our table and start to put together this batter. Right at the top, we have a complication. We need to mix up our liquid ingredients first, and we want this butter to be liquid. So I'm gonna put the butter in a little pan here. We've got maybe 1/8 of a pound of butter here, half a stick for most of you folks out there. And I'm gonna put some milk in here. I'm gonna use milk instead of cream because that's what I have. Probably 4 ounces or so of milk, and I'm gonna set this on our fire in a very, very gentle place. I just wanna melt this butter and get the milk warm, but not like hot, because, well, we're gonna put yeast in here and we don't wanna kill it. So let's put this by the fire and get it warmed up. We've got 2 eggs. We also have some flour, about 4 ounces of flour. We just need a little bit of this cooking wine, maybe max 1 or 2 ounces here, not too much. We don't want to make it too liquidy. We also have some yeast. Now, we're going to be using a liquid yeast in our recipe, but you can use just regular quick rising yeast. Put it in a little bit of water, let it start percolating, and then put it in there. You probably only need maybe a half a packet or less. Not a lot of yeast here, just a bit. This is a special recipe from the 18th century. It's high class and it's got nutmeg in it, so don't forget to put some ground nutmeg into this batter. It's probably what makes it the best. And this recipe also has a bit of sugar. I would only put in about 1 ounce or so. So we put our batter into this wonderful little cooking pot so we can set it by the fire and it'll stay safe. We're going to set this by the fire for 3 or 4 hours. Let that yeast really get going to leaven this. If you use something like a quick yeast, you won't have to wait very long at all. And if you cheated and used baking soda or baking powder, well, you don't have to wait at all. Our batter is over here working. The yeast is going to give us nice, light, and fluffy waffles, but we have to give it time. So let's talk about the equipment that we need to make waffles and what they actually looked like. Yes, we've got 17th century paintings. They're square. They have little square holes, just like our waffles do today. And we've got some good evidence for the 18th century. There's a work of fiction that was printed in 1798 in England, and one of the chapters is called A Layer of Waffles. Let me read to you this. It says, "The evening air was redolent with waffles baked in irons that had given them the square imprint which comes down through the ages as the only orthodox pattern." We also have other recipes. Here's a 1804 recipe, and it talks specifically of putting your waffle iron in the fire and getting it ready to bake. Not just a regular pan that you would do something like pancakes in, but specifically irons. And we also know, at least it's been said, that Thomas Jefferson had waffle irons imported just for him. So Thomas Jefferson must have liked waffles, and if they don't have the square holes, then it's not a waffle, right? So here we have a set of antique waffle irons, nice sized waffle iron. I don't know exactly what the time period is for this, probably 19th century, but it's rough enough that these might be 18th century waffle iron. And there's the inside of it. We can see it's got just that standard waffle design. And this waffle iron we're gonna put in the fire and get it nice and hot. It's got nice long handles so that you can keep away from that heat. It even has a sort of a little holder so it won't just flop open on you when you don't want them to. And you can see this one has been used a lot. This has probably had 1 million waffles through it already, and we're gonna put some more through it today. They're here, waffles. These guys smell so good, and here we are taking them out of the out of the irons, and they're steaming, and it just smells really good. These have to be great. We poured melted butter on them, just like all the descriptions, and then sprinkled some sugar over the top, like many of the other descriptions. Yeah, we could put maple syrup on it, but maybe they were not quite as 18th century that way. So we're going to do it this way. Now, this is the 1725 recipe. Little bit different. Boy, are those good. These are really good. And you know, you do definitely, and you could smell it as they cooked, that little bit of cooking wine in there brings a flavor in that you're not expecting and is so good. And, you know, the nutmeg is in there, which, hey, nutmeg is the thing. They had it right in the 18th century. They knew what they were doing. And then, of course, you smother anything in sugar and butter, and it's going to be good. These are kind of delicate. You know, these aren't your toaster waffles that you can, you know, slam up against a wall and they're still a waffle. These are nice and delicate, but yet those little square holes hold all that butter. That's what those square holes are for. Now we know, right? They're only there just to make sure all that stuff stays on top and doesn't just pour over the sides. You know, I think that you know, maple syrup would just be too much. You know, just what we've got here, just so very good. You know why? There's some recipes, undoubtedly, they did 200 and 300 years ago. We don't do today because yuck, they're no good, right? But waffles, these have lasted. These are great. I can't recommend this 300-year-old recipe for waffles enough. You really must try it, even if you have to do it in a modern waffle iron, even though that's kind of cheating. Do it anyway. Try this one out. It's going to be really good. And if you want something very similar and a great flavor, try this milk pancake episode. You'll love it.